These are some of the craziest alien theories in Joe Rogan history. As always, if you guys enjoy, please be sure to subscribe with post notifications on.
When they detonated the bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, that's when UFOs started coming. And all the UFO activity ramped up substantially. And
Why do you think that is?
Because I think they realized we have nukes. Like, these crazy motherfuckers that just wipe out whole cities with nukes. These fucking assholes, they had to come down and go, whoa, whoa, whoa. What are you doing, man? What the fuck are you doing?
That's why you think they came like, yo, hey, they fucking nuclear weapons. What the fuck is going on? Who gave them nuclear weapons?
Yeah. Well, I think they realized we reached a level of technological sophistication that we could kind of kill everybody on Earth.
Or you think one of them went rogue and taught us?
I don't think one of them went rogue and taught us, because there's a very, like, if you go and look at the Manhattan Project and you go and look at the history of splitting the atom, there's a very clear academic paper trail of how they figured this out, and all the trials that they did and what they did when they detonated the Trinity bomb, which, by the way, was one of the first times they ever discovered those nanodiamonds. It's called, I think they call it trinitite, and it's like nuclear glass, they call it as well. And it's what happens when a massive impact hits sand and it turns it into this kind of glass.
I think that because when it come with all the visits,
Yeah.
what were they visiting to do? Because I know, they ought to say like we caught one or something like that.
Yeah.
If you did you try to torture him and get stuff out of him? What would be the thing? But what were the visits if they wasn't teaching something? Cause I believe in it. I just don't know what they were visiting to do.
Well, the way I describe it is there's a great show on Netflix called Chimp Empire. And Chimp Empire is all about these scientists that are embedded in this chimp tribe. And they've been there for 30 years. Because these scientists have been there for 30 years, the chimpanzees behave like there's no people there. They can get within 20 feet of these chimpanzees. Chimpanzees, as long as they don't eat in front of them, and as long as they never present any sort of danger, raise their voices, and as long as they just stay back, the chimps don't pay attention to them at all. They just go throughout their life. And so these scientists are observing these chimpanzees, and then the cinematographers captured all of this. I think the way we treat chimpanzees is probably, and they let them kill each other. They do wild shit to each other, these chimps. They engage in territorial warfare. They fight over access to fruit. I think the aliens would treat us the same way. I think they would observe us, but not do anything. And I think if we did something fucking dangerous, like nuclear bombs, then they would go, whoa, okay. Because I think if alien societies do exist, and intelligent life is out there in the universe, I think what happens is they keep getting more and more and more and more sophisticated. And in the beginning, they engage in tribal warfare. And as they become more and more sophisticated, their technology becomes far too dangerous to keep doing that same shit. And that's when they observe them, because it's this perilous tipping point where we could completely wipe out life on Earth, or we can evolve and get to the next stage of existence where we could coexist harmoniously throughout the universe and join some fucking global, some rather universal group of beings. That's possible. But the only way that's possible is if we don't nuke ourselves. What do you think about all this UFO disclosure shit? Are you paying attention to it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's pretty cool.
It's pretty interesting, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting, like, how little people seem to care.
Because we already know.
I know, but it's interesting that, like, there wasn't, like, some moment where people, like, were like, holy shit, aliens are real.
Pretty soon that's coming.
You think? I think it's because this slow trickle, it's going to be, we just accept it.
Well, they try to normalize it with like War of the Worlds, which is like the or Battle of Los Angeles and shit like that. That was a real fucking thing that happened. The pictures of Battle of Los Angeles is crazy.
What happened exactly?
There's this big object in the sky, and we're shooting machine guns at it. We got spotlights. This is like in the 50s, maybe? Look at this shit.
Wow.
So we're putting fucking rounds on this fucking thing.
Spotlights on this thing in the sky.
Look at the rounds.
Right, but what is it? What is it that they see? That's weird that all you can see is spotlights.
1947, it says in there.
Boy, that looks like a fucking flying saucer.
Look at in the middle,
Yeah.
and but those things around it, those are fucking like Ma-Deuce rounds. Like they're shooting at this fucking thing. They don't know what it is.
Well, you know that there's a famous story from the Soviet Union that these guys shot at a UFO and it turned them into stone.
Is it true?
I don't know. The CIA investigated it. Here, I'll send it to you, Jamie, because I sent it to Jeremy Corbell, and that's what I asked him.
Fuck, I should have had links, Jamie. God damn it.
Well, this is the only link I have. It's
CIA UFO turned into STEM. You're
you
definitely
find
on a
it?
watch list, Jamie.
Yeah, so there's literally like a CIA document about it. That these guys supposedly shot at a low-flying spaceship. Look at it. According to the KGB materials, a quite low-flying spaceship in the shape of a saucer appeared above a military unit that was conducting routine training maneuvers. For unknown reasons, somebody unexpectedly launched a surface-to-air missile and hit the UFO. It fell to Earth not far away, and 5 short humanoids with large heads and large black eyes emerged from it. It is stated in the testimonies by the 2 soldiers who remained alive that after freeing themselves from the debris, the aliens came close together and then merged into a single object that acquired a spherical shape. That object began to buzz and hiss sharply and then became brilliant white. In a few seconds, the spheres grew much bigger and exploded by flaring up with an extremely bright light. At that very instant, 23 soldiers who had watched the phenomenon turned into stone poles. Yeah, only 2 soldiers who stood in the shade and were less exposed to the luminous explosion survived.
No shit.
The KGB report goes on to say that the remains of the UFO and the petrified soldiers were transferred to a secret scientific research institution near Moscow. Specialists assume that a source of energy that is still unknown to Earthlings instantly changed the structure of the soldiers' living organisms, having transformed it into a substance whose molecular composition is no different from that of limestone. Oh my God.
It turned them into limestone.
Turned them literally into limestone.
And this is a CIA paperwork?
Well, this is, they're reading from a KGB file, right? So it's just, go to the very bottom of that again, Jamie, the very bottom of that. It says, one of the things it says, the CIA representative stated, if the KGB file corresponds to reality, this is an extremely menacing case. The aliens possess such weapons and technology that go beyond all our assumptions. They can stand up for themselves if attacked. But the thing is, they're saying if the file corresponds to reality, that means there's a question.
If this is real, they're tough.
Yeah, they can fuck with you.
What year was this released?
I don't know.
Source is a newspaper.
1991?
93.
So there's all these disclosures that are going on right now, and they're very, very fascinating because it's hard to know what's true and what's not true. But it's interesting that they're talking about it. But no one showed me anything yet. I'm waiting for them to show me things. I've seen some things already, like those videos that they took off the FLIR video and the Go Fast video, and these videos of these things where these jet fighter pilots are trying to track this thing, and it's like zipping across the sky, and they're like, what the fuck is that? I've seen a few of those. I've talked to 2 different fighter pilots that have had encounters.
And they're all in.
They're all in. I think there's a real thing going on. What that real thing is what's confusing to me. I think some of it has to be ours. I think some of it has to be like super advanced drone technology that we don't want everyone knowing about, and it's probably some black ops shit. But I don't think that's all of it. I think it's also possible that we've been visited. It just makes sense. It sounds so stupid. That's part of the problem of even talking about it, because it sounds dumb, because there's no evidence. So you have to believe in something where there's no evidence of it other than like some blurry photographs. But then when you just think about the size of the universe itself and the fact that we exist here on this planet. We're real. We know we're real.
What if it's fucking a Martha or whatever, and they're from fucking the center of the earth, and the holes in the poles or whatever, north and south, and that's where the holes are, and that's why Google Maps blocks it all out and all that shit.
Well, that would be a great theory before cell phones, like that.
But it's not there. You still can't see it.
Maybe you can with satellites, and also flight pattern. Like the people that
copy and paste. By the way,
you know who doesn't think the world is flat? Pilots.
True. Or anyone who's been in an airplane.
They fly around, these motherfuckers. They know where they have to go. They know the flight patterns.
You look at it.
Yeah, you look at it. Yeah. Also, by the way, everything's round. Go out in the fucking sky and look at Mars, look at Jupiter, get a telescope, look at all the stars. Notice how everything's round? Seems like there's a pattern going on. Why would this be different?
This ass is round.
Yeah. As those ancient aliens type folks that really want everything
They want everything to be ancient aliens, and I've been accused of how could I not accept this or that,
Me too.
because
people get mad about
yeah,
those
they get
theories.
really mad at me, and
They're
they
the
say,
nastiest.
Yeah, they're nastiest, and they'll even tell me, well, this supports everything you've been saying. I don't care if it supports everything I've been saying. If it's not real, it's not real. If the evidence isn't there, it's not,
It is fascinating that they do dig up these ancient structures and the Machu Picchu and all these different places where, like, wow, these construction methods are really pretty impressive.
Incredible.
What was going on back then, but they always want to tie it to aliens.
They always want to tie it to aliens, which I think is I hate to use this term, but sort of a cop-out.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, it's a business.
It's a business. Well, that's what it gets down to.
Yes.
A lot of this is business. People want to sell their books. They want to sell their conferences. They want to sell their DVDs.
Right.
They want to sell their YouTube videos. In some cases, they want to sell for money. In some cases, they want to sell for promotion,
Yes.
self-promotion. They want to be famous. I told you I was accused of that back. You know, in the
People
early
love
'90s.
those.
Oh, I just doing this because I want to be famous. No, I'm not that type of person. Actually,
Well, people love those shows, those UFO and ancient alien type
Yeah.
shows, and they love those conferences. They go to those conferences
Yeah.
and they all just
Yeah,
mentally
they do.
masturbate together. It's very bizarre. It's like, but they're all like,
Yeah.
there's nothing
But you know,
to support
but I think it.
what they're
But
saying.
but I think it does fill a void for some people. And one
Yes.
thing I'm trying to do is to fill that void with something real,
Right.
something important, something that has evidence to back it up, because there are a lot of questions, there are a lot of mysteries, and I will admit I've been on the Ancient Aliens show, but I've never proposed ancient aliens. I've never supported that. I've always been clear if people actually listen to me, but they asked me to be on it. And a number of other academics have too.
Do they use you out of context? A little bit?
Well, yeah, the context is not necessarily
Slippery.
Yeah, slippery. But the point is that there are real mysteries to this
Yes.
day, things that we don't really understand that you and I have been discussing about, and there's so many more we could discuss, but those are real. And so many people that I know that watch shows like that, when I talk to them, and I'm talking academics who would never admit that they watch it because they find it entertaining, number one. They don't quite say it this way, but I think it fills a void.
Yeah.
And it does raise issues that if they're perceptive, then they might become aware of and realize that these are real issues. No ancient aliens or some other easy answer is not the way to go, but they are real things that need to be looked into. So even when I speak at a conference like that, there are so many very intelligent people that are there besides the other, but they're different types of people.
Sure.
But I know many people, they'll have PhDs and stuff, and they'll go to it for sort of between entertainment, but also to get exposed to things they're not going to be exposed to by the standard academic community.
Right. What do you think about all this stuff about, the New York Times had articles about it. There's Air Force test pilots have come out talking about encountering flying saucers. Mm-hmm. Or unidentified flying objects, particularly Commander Fravor, who had that
David
tic-tac
Fravor
thing. Yeah. What do you think about all that?
Yeah, we do. I'm a shameless marketer. We do an episode on that, on ATIP, on the Advanced Aviation Threat Identification Program. And look, again, I always say the same thing. I'm not a conspiracy guy. I tend to be very cynical about everything, but. After talking to some of these folks, including Fravor and a handful of others who were both pilots and also were involved in the ATIP program for the U.S. government, for the military, there's things out there that we haven't been able to identify, right? And I'm not jumping on the alien train, right? Necessarily, but what I'm saying is that there are things that extremely experienced pilots, military pilots with significant amounts of experience couldn't figure out, couldn't identify, right? And so I'm certainly not going to be smart enough to say, okay, this is what it was. Was it a foreign government's experimental aircraft? Was it something? I don't know. But what I do know is that the U.S. government took it seriously enough that they developed their own internal program within the Pentagon to try to sort out the wheat from the chaff, right? And say, okay, what do we actually have to worry about? In part because it's a national security issue, right? If there is a aircraft or if there's something up there that a military pilot sees, for instance, that can't identify. All right, well, we have an obligation to figure out what that is, because if it's a hostile foreign government's efforts to develop, craft that we don't know about or propulsion systems we don't know about, then yes, we should be working on that issue. the problem has always been that once you talk about that, then people immediately go, oh, aliens, huh? Area 51, and it kind of gets dismissed. Yeah. But there was a much more serious effort than I knew about before I started working on this thing. And so I don't know. I think, I've got an open mind about that. It's like that old, thing about how can we really be the only people out here, right? Or life forms out here. I don't know. That seems a little obscure for me to believe.
It seems unrealistic.
Yeah. So, but
when a guy like Fravor,
yeah.
that's the thing. When someone who's that rock solid comes out and tells the story, and he's not deviating from his story, he's not a guy who's trying to make money. He's just, and he doesn't have a history of telling fantastic stories.
And he knew what it meant when he was going to come forward and talk about this. And you've got the gun cameras. And you've got the radar operators who also saw the same thing.
They saw it, and they said it was actively jamming their radar. Yeah. Which they said, what the fuck? And then the way it moved from 60,000 feet down to like 200 feet in like less than a second.
Yeah, and no signs of any propulsion system.
Yeah.
No, there's several things about that leave you scratching your head. Again, I'm not making a case one way or the other. The point of this is to kind of use the money trail as a way to get inside some of these programs, and then to the degree that you can, to the degree that you can talk about things that are declassified, not necessarily try to make a case. We're not trying to say it is this or it is that, but I think we're presenting a lot of interesting information that, again, with this situation with Fravor as an example, you come away from it and you think, okay, I'm not dismissing anything at this point. Just it would be I think foolish to or anyway. So interesting stuff. But
was that ever anything that came up during your career?
No. I was pretty much straightforward. Pound the ground through some counterinsurgency operations, counter-narcotics, counter-terrorism operations. We never did any counter-alien things. Right, that must have been that was a different operation. That was on a floor we weren't allowed to go onto at the headquarters.
It seems like if we had to admit it was real, if it was something that was real, and we were being contacted on a regular basis, or at least a semi-regular basis, that would change the way everybody feels about everything.
Yes.
Remember when Reagan gave that speech? Mm-hmm. Maybe I think it was the United Nations. He said, imagine how easily we would come together if we were faced with a threat from an alien world.
Right.
And everybody was like, oh my God, he knows something. Yeah. The aliens.
He's about to spill the beans.
Yeah, that's what we were hoping. All the UFO dorks like myself.
Well, but think about it. I mean, think if that did come out, which is what part of the allure, right, is the idea that, the government's been keeping this from us for all these years. And you think about what that would mean, not just obviously, oh my God, really, there's something going on out there, but then sort of that breakdown in trust, not that it's not happening already in terms of the government and its ability to, play square. But, yeah, I mean, look, Area 51. Area 51 was scouted out for use as an experimental, test site for aircraft, and made perfect sense. Well, then you get all these experimental aircraft being developed out there and flown, some successfully, some not, and locals see this shit. Locals being a fairly good-sized region because of the distance on these. And, it's understandable how you start getting some of these stories. But, having said that, I sat down with Fravor, right? We talked about this a lot for this one episode. And I talked to several others. And, again, I come away and I'm not sure what to think. But, again, I'm not closing the book on anything at this point.
See, the way I looked at it is if these were unique expeditions from another planet, or whatever it is that comes here, some alien spacecraft, all they'd have to do is come here once or twice.
Get fed up.
Not even that, but I used to have a bit about it, how Earth is the Tijuana of outer space. They only come down here when they're fucked up and they want to see a show. That's why they don't stay. They just come down and they go, what the fuck? Like, no one's doing any science expeditions to Tijuana.
I'm not going back there. No way. Not unless I'm drunk again.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking that if they were going to come down here and examine us, I mean, they could just do it a couple of times and people have these stories and everybody else dismisses it. Like, where are they? Where are they? I don't see any aliens. Yeah. Because you really wouldn't. And you probably don't. If they're capable of moving at the speed that Fravor described, where it was just impossible to track with the human eye.
They're not going to view us as a threat.
No.
Yeah. They're not going to.
They think we're a threat. I think they're just, I don't know.
They're not going to look at us and say, we want to steal their technology.
It's the most fascinating thing to me. Out of all the weird what ifs and who could do this and how could that be true, The alien one is the most fascinating, because if that was real, and if we somehow or another one day get some undeniable proof, like the Fravor film, the film footage, the gunner footage, the radar footage, that's pretty goddamn compelling. But man, if there was something like off the charts, Tesla believed it. Tesla believes he was getting signals from some other either some other planet or some other life forms. He had some weird shit that he wrote that's hard to decipher about what he. See if you can find that, because that's a very interesting thing, Jamie. See if you can find what did Tesla like. Tesla had a take on receiving information from other galaxies. He had this take on where some of his inventions were coming from. It's like what or some of the transmissions that he would receive. I mean, god damn, it wouldn't have been amazing to talk to that guy.
Yes.
Imagine having Nikola Tesla on the podcast.
Oh. Who knows, man? Maybe you still can one day.
Maybe bring him back.
Yeah, bring him back. Or like create an AI Tesla. I think a lot of people have that feeling, and some of them just don't come out of the closet, so to speak, with it because they're afraid they're going to get judged or ostracized. I think a lot of people feel like they have a direct contact with some kind of sentience that isn't embodied inside of them, and it's giving them ideas, and they're just terrified to put it out to the world because it sounds like you're fucking nuts.
His claims of receiving signals from outer space were proven right a century later. Ooh. During the summer of 1899, Tesla set up a field laboratory in Colorado Springs, Colorado to the possibilities of using high altitude stations to transmit information and electric power over long distances. 1 July.
This is not what
not
I'm
it?
talking about. This is about just signals, not like him getting.
Oh, okay. Where is the signals?
This is like radio signals.
Oh, that he was getting radio signals from other planets.
After the ruling out, I think this is about sending.
After ruling out solar and terrestrial causes, he concluded the signals must be from another planet.
He had a seizure and had a vision, which is what, like, that's a...
Yeah, well, here it says, on 1 July day, while tracking lightning storms. Oh, so it's actually equipment. His equipment picked up a series of beeps. After ruling out solar and terrestrial causes, he concluded the signals must be from another planet. The following Christmas, in response to the American Red Cross's request for a prediction of the greatest scientific achievement of the coming century, Tesla wrote, "Brethren, we have a message from another world, unknown and remote. It reads, 1, 2, 3. In 1996, scientists published a study replicating Tesla's experiment and showing that the signal was in fact caused by the moon low passing through Jupiter's magnetic field. Holy fuck. He was picking up a moon passing through Jupiter's magnetic field.
Yeah. But he had woo ideas too, man.
Oh, yeah. He was in love with a pigeon.
He's in love with a pigeon. Not just that, though. He, I think he did think he was in contact with, like, some kind of sentient intelligence, for sure.
Why not? Why wouldn't you think? If you're that smart, imagine how smart he was in comparison to, like, a regular dope. Hey, mister, you want to buy a paper? You know, those people from back then? Some fucking dude selling papers in the corner, and then the greatest genius the world's ever known up to that point.
Yeah.
Wandering around trying to figure out how to send electricity through the sky.
Maybe that's all intelligence is, though, man. Is like having the willingness to let yourself go crazy enough to believe you're not the creator of your ideas.
The 2017 New York Times article, in my mind, made that was a big shift, because when the New York Times is reporting about it and saying that this is major news and this is real and there's video evidence that they can't ignore, when you talk to high-level people at the government and people like Commander David Fravor, who had that infamous spotting off of the coast of San Diego, when you hear about people like that are very reputable, it starts to change the conversation in a lot of people's eyes.
Right. See, it used to be that one person would see something in the sky and say, look, Martha, look, there's something up there. Now things have changed. Now we have multiple sightings by multiple modes. That is the gold standard. The gold standard for looking for these objects. Not just one person, but several people that are reputable. Not just radar, but visual sighting, infrared sensors, telescopic evidence. Now we have multiple sightings by multiple modes. And so the burden of proof has shifted. It used to be the burden of proof was on the people who believed in UFOs. They saw something, prove it. Now the burden of proof has shifted to the Pentagon, to the military. Now they have to prove that these aren't extraterrestrial. And so I think there's been a sea change in the last just several years. 50 years ago, there was a congressional hearing, and it was coming out of Project Blue Book. And there was a lot of laughter and a lot of jokes about little green men in outer space. 50 years ago, that's the way it was. Now, things have changed. Now people are looking at are they a threat militarily? What kinds of sensors do we have? What kind of metrics do we have? We now have frame by frame an analysis of these objects. These objects travel between Mach 5 and Mach 20. That's 20 times the speed of sound. These objects can zigzag, and we can measure the g-force inside this object. The g-forces are several hundred times the force of gravity. In other words, any living person's bones would be crushed by these objects, so they're probably drones of some sort. These objects can drop 70,000 feet in a few seconds. Think about that. It can drop a tremendous distance in just a few seconds, and they can go underwater. This is something that we didn't realize before, but yes, they can actually go underwater. And they also move without creating an exhaust or breaking the sound barrier. So these are things that we can now document frame by frame looking at these videotapes.
So for yourself, what was the shift? And how did you feel about UFOs, say like 10, 15 years ago?
Well, there is this giggle factor, and it's the third rail, of course, of your scientific reputation, if you believe in these things. But the evidence is accumulating over the last several years. Now, when I was first approached by Carolyn Corey, the producer of this film, A Tear in the Sky, I was skeptical. I said to myself, come on. I mean, 5 days? 5 days you're going to look for flying saucers in the sky? What happens if the aliens are camera shy and they don't show up in 5 days? So I was pleasantly surprised when they actually found something. They actually have photographic evidence of objects that can gyrate just the way the Pentagon has said. And so we now have a sea change. A center of gravity has changed with regards to looking at these objects. We no longer simply look at one individual seeing something in the sky. No, we demand hours of videotape, multiple sightings by multiple modes. That's the gold standard now.
So what do you think is happening? Do you think that this is something that maybe another government from another country has created that far surpasses our abilities, or do you think that this is coming from somewhere else?
Well, the Pentagon has listed, I think, 5 different options. One option, of course, is that they're weather balloons or something that's an artifact of our space program. Maybe a piece of rocket that is plunging back into the Earth's atmosphere. That's one category. Another category is anomalous weather events. They happen, and they have to be looked at very carefully. But the last option is other. That is not just the Russians or the Chinese, because these objects apparently can gyrate faster than what the Chinese and the Russians can muster, but it opened the door to the possibility of other. They didn't specify what other was, but you can fill in the dots yourself. Now, one possibility for other is hypersonic drones. We see that in warfare now. The Russians in the Battle of Ukraine is actually using hypersonic drones to hit targets inside Ukraine. To be hypersonic, you have to go faster than Mach 5. Anything faster than 5 times the speed of sound is called hypersonic. And so the Russians are now fielding hypersonic drones in warfare. But you see, this is something just in the last few months. These sightings, they go back decades into the past, with objects executing these gyrations decades ago. And that's why you have to take them seriously.
You and I have some shared interests, clearly, in the world of UFOs. But I want to talk, most people know of you because of Bigelow Aerospace. They know that you're this billionaire investor and you're a very successful businessman, but you have a deep fascination with UFOs.
Yeah, sure do.
How did this all get started?
Back when I was about 3 years old, which would be about 1947, and actually of May of that year, my grandparents had a very close encounter that was dramatic. And they were taking an evening drive in the late afternoon up into the mountains and coming on back down to Las Vegas. And they saw what appeared to be at first an airplane on fire. And the object became closer and closer to them, and they pulled off to the side of the road. And at one point, then it filled up the windshield, and they thought they were going to die. And at the last second, it shot off and disappeared. And I learned of this story when I was probably 10 years old, and because I was 3 at the time. And my mother had told me this story. So I approached my grandfather, and he wouldn't talk about it. Now, after all these years, like 7 years have gone by, because I was intrigued with it. And so I went to my grandmother, and she only would say a few words, but she wouldn't talk. So I got the story from my mom, and my grandfather had to sit on the side of the road there in the car for a while to recompose himself, and because they thought they were going to die, and then he finally was able to drive on back to Las Vegas. So that was the beginning for me.
Did he ever describe what you said? It looked like a plane on fire, but like, what was the shape of it as it got closer?
I don't recall any kind of shape that my mother described. I don't recall that.
But they just knew it wasn't a plane. They knew it was something.
That's right.
Something crazy.
So in the family, the family had an event, and I lived right next door to my grandparents, and the family had an event that kind of started things at that date. For me, other personal things came later, but for the family, that was a big deal.
So this was, you said 47?
47.
And 47 was the time of the Roswell crash. 47 was a time there was a lot of UFO activity being observed worldwide. And the speculation is that this had to do with the nuclear bombs that were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki and all the tests that the United States had done and Russia had done, and that there was a lot of interest in obviously in that. Well, actually, Russia hadn't dropped any bombs by that time, right?
Right.
It was after that, but that there was interest in our species by extraterrestrials because they're like, these crazy assholes are detonating nukes. Like, let's go take a look at them.
Right. Well, you had so-called Foo Fighters during the war, these lights that were following bombers, and the tail gunners were the ones that saw them most often, of course, and that happened through the war, and then of course Roswell, but before that was Ken Arnold, right? In about June-ish, and then in July 8th was Roswell.
And there's a direct uptick though from the Trinity experiments, right?
I think I gather my feeling simply is that without any kind of other evidence or proof that was a huge stimulus. Yeah.
So this was around that time, and you had heard about this as a part of family discussions,
right? And
so that sort of ignited the fire initially.
Yeah, and I started asking my friends, as I say, when I was about 10, have you any reports in your family of anything? And by golly, a couple of my close friends told me things that they had never told me before. So that wasn't necessarily an exclusive event, is what I'm saying. Other people in Las Vegas had seen things at close proximity as well.
Now, your relationship to this is obviously something that you've carried for so long. It's been an obsession of yours for so long.
Yeah.
It started with this, but what personal experiences, if any, have you had?
Well, when I was probably 7 or 8, I used to have what I chalked up all my life to just being silly dreams. And I had maybe 5 or 6 of these dreams, and I could never make sense of them. And I would be laying in bed on my side, and typical dream, always the same. There would be 3 short somethings in a kind of monk robe, and so I couldn't see any face, couldn't see any appendages. And these 3 whatevers were standing there, and they were not too far from my eye level as far as the heights and so forth.
So these like child size?
Yeah. And so there was nothing I was an avid comic book reader, but there was nothing in the whole genre of comic books that related to that, or movies. And we didn't have television in Las Vegas till 53 or 54. And even after that, it was terrible broadcasting, at first. But so it made no sense to me. And so over my lifetime, I never mentioned it to anybody, including my wife. It's funny how you keep things secret and just kind of for no good reason. Maybe I would be embarrassed to talk about it. But I finally thought, well, maybe it was just dreams. Maybe it was something else. And so that was a first event personally that I had at that time in the subject.
When did you start to connect the idea of these tiny people or human-like things with extraterrestrials?
Well, years later, when I began to start my process as a researcher and as a student in the subject, and began to talk with people who made it their business to be experts in abductions. And the more I got into the field and sat writing out questions for the researcher, for the therapist who would be asking the questions, and I'd be sitting there watching the process. And just over time, I thought, well, maybe there was something more to it, but I'm better off not knowing anything, so I'll just block it off and forget about it.
Yeah, we talked last night about John Mack a little bit, the Harvard.
A great guy.
Yeah. And he did a lot of these sort of hypnotic regression sessions with people where they describe very similar scenarios.
A multitude of different situations. The abduction phenomena was very proliferate in the population, it seemed like. Even we did a survey called the Roper Poll, and we repeated it 3 times so that the margin of error was really reduced to like 1.5%. And abduction researchers came up with the 10 questions, and so we distributed that, and the conclusion was a fairly relatively sizable percentage of the population had some kind of experiences, according to them, according to the researchers, and according to the poll. I am not qualified to speak to the accuracy of whether the questions were that relevant to the conclusions or not, but that's what they said. And and I had in my own research found people that I put them through regression. Not personally, but I found a hypnotherapist that could do that. And I found a number of people just here, there, scattered around, maybe somebody in my own staff. And they would come up with these stories and these events.
When you discuss the cosmos, maybe the single most intriguing possibility to us as human beings is what other intelligent life, if any, is out there. And how interesting is that to you? Because you spend so much time studying the fundamental particles of the universe itself. How interested are you in the possibility of other intelligent life forms? Or have you just put that out into it's just so ridiculously unlikely or so far away from us that we're probably never going to make contact?
Well, you see, it's not so... There's this SETI program where they're looking to see whether they can see signals from distant civilizations. The problem there, from my perspective, is that although they might be out there, they've got to have had a real head start on us before you would see them. They might have done so, but then I don't know. You see, actually, Vahir Gurzajan, who's my Armenian colleague and who looked also for these ring-shaped things and looked at them in a different way from the Polish people, but we seem to have seen something there. But we wrote a paper in which we speculated on beings from the previous eon communicating with us. And the advantage there is that you're looking at the really advanced civilizations,
really
right at the very end, you see.
Billions of years ago, that their universe disappeared and then had to come back to a Big Bang state
the signals could come through, yes.
And somehow or another, those signals remain.
It's conceivable. I agree it's pretty far-fetched, but, who knows what...
So eons, how many billions of years are you talking about? Like the Big Bang was 14 billion?
Yes, but you see, that's way at the beginning in a sense, or it's 3/4 of the way through in another sense. It depends how you draw the pictures.
Right.
In the sense of interestingness, or in the conformal picture... We are already 3/4 of the way through.
So 14 billion to now. So we have how
you
many
can't
billion
count
left?
it as years, you see. The trouble is it's a cheat.
It's a cheat.
The year count is as much as you like. It depends on something else. The mass has to fade out, and how you measure time becomes problematic. Mm-hmm. And it's either infinity, you see, which isn't much use, or you might have a different definitions of time, which depend on what particle you're using as your clocks and things like that.
So are you essentially saying that it's entirely possible that we are the furthest in terms of our technological achievement and our understanding of the universe itself? It's possible that we're at the front of the line, that there might be some other intelligent life forms in the universe, but they might be behind us.
Well, there would have been... I'm not saying they got through, you see. Well,
right.
Maybe they have techniques for getting through, but that's a bit hard to imagine. But maybe information from them could get through, and maybe
you mean from the previous eon?
Yes.
Oh, they might have got through, somehow or another survived.
Yes, but it would have to be in the form of photons or something. Yeah, no, you could. It's not. I'm talking about ridiculous speculation.
Sure,
now.
but
So,
encoding information into photons.
Yes.
Wow.
It's conceivable.
Sure.
Now, I don't want to say that I see it happening or anything, but it's not out of the question that they could develop some technology which would get information, which might be them in some sense, across in the form of photons.
But you're not optimistic about current intelligent life somewhere in the universe?
Not too optimistic, just because, well, maybe it took us a long time to get going because the dinosaurs were there for a while and somebody might have got in there earlier in their different planet and they could have got there quite ahead of us. It's conceivable. I'm not going to rule it out. I'm just not terribly optimistic about it. No, I think it's worth doing. It's worth looking.
Yes, but it's not something that you're really curious about.
I'm expecting. It's not so much. I'd be curious certainly, but I'm not expecting it, I guess.
Is it just because of the overall lack of real evidence, and it's just not an attractive thing for you to pursue?
It's quite attractive.
It certainly would be.
I don't know. I've just been doing other things, and I don't know. There's enough to do in the world. I haven't really come to terms with it very hugely, so I know there's this activity, and I'd be interested to see if any kind of, if there was this thing that came past that some people speculated was sent there by a different intelligence, which came quite close in our solar system.
Oh, that was that strange-looking cigar-shaped.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see any real reason to believe it's a alien spaceship.
Was it because of the way it was traveling? That was the idea?
Yes, it was something.
Something curious about it?
Serious people did suggest it might be something sent by an alien civilization. Well, it's worth, if one could connect with it in some way. But I don't know. I guess it's too far away now.
Well, it's another thing that's so uniquely fascinating for us, the concept of another life form out there.
Oh, sure. Yes.
Bob Lazar, what he's talking about. I wanted to know with the Bob Lazar thing. I wanted to know, first of all, I want to be around him and see if I could smell bullshit.
Did you? Okay.
No, I didn't, man. That was what's weird about it. Not only did I not smell bullshit, I went over all of his interviews. He hasn't done a lot, but he's done enough. And he's done them over the course of 30 plus years. And it's alarming how consistent his story is, which is really weird when you think about, you're talking about back engineering alien crafts and working on a top secret government test site that's carved into the side of a mountain and to camouflage it from satellites. It's such a wacky story, but the guy really did work at Los Alamos Labs. He really is a propulsions expert. He really is a scientist. Did he really work on back engineering UFOs? I don't know. But the way he described their motion is exactly like what's been observed by some of these pilots that have these videos that they've captured.
And I just love that, like NASA, I've been hearing from a bunch of folks they're legitimately like funding research, and there's people really taking this seriously of UFO sightings, investigating them.
Yeah.
Like adding more and more sensors to collect data from just observing at higher and higher definitions. It's cool to finally see that. And he was one of the early people, whether he's full of shit or not, that kind of forced people to start taking these topics seriously.
Or at least force people to have conversations about them and maybe attempt to debunk them because it seems so preposterous, but then get sucked down the rabbit hole and start going, maybe. Well, it's the thing is like the Fermi paradox, like where are they, right? And when you take into account just the sheer raw numbers, the vast majority of people objectively assume that there is life out there. The vast majority. Well, if you really take into account what we understand about the universe itself, what we understand about the concept of infinity, and the way Neil deGrasse Tyson has explained it to me is that not only are there life forms out there, but there's you. You are out there. Infinity is so large that Lex Fridman exists, and doesn't just exist, but exists an infinite number of times. Like the amount of interactions that cells and molecules, the same exact interactions that have happened here on Earth have happened in the exact same order an infinite number of times in the cosmos.
Well, first of all, it's not certain that that's true. It's possible.
It's possible.
Like Sean Carroll, especially with quantum mechanics, based on certain interpretation of quantum mechanics, that's very possible. But the question is, can you access those universes?
Right.
And so
how far away are they?
The more sort of specific practical question is, this local pocket of the universe, our galaxy or our neighboring galaxies, are there aliens there? What do they look like?
Right.
Are they, so you can have this panspermia idea where a much larger, like daddy civilization rolled by and just planted a few aliens at a similar time,
like Prometheus.
Yes.
Yeah.
A different, throughout the galaxy. And those are the ones we might be interacting with. They're all kind of dumb as we are, relatively, maybe a few million years apart. And then those are the ones we're interacting with. And then we have a chance to actually connect with them and communicate with them. Or it could be like much more wide open, and you have these gigantic alien civilizations that are expanding very, very quickly. And the interesting thing is, when you look up at the sky and you see the stars, that's light from those stars. We might not be seeing the alien civilizations until they're already here, meaning
right.
Like you start expanding, once you get really good at expanding, you're going to be expanding very close to the speed of light. So right now we don't see much in the sky, but there could be one day we wake up and it's just like everywhere, and they're here.
Right. Right, because of the amount of time the light takes to reach us. Yeah, and then the thing that I've been really fascinated by is these alternative forms of transportation that they're discussing, like the ability to harness wormholes and the ability to do things that a Type 3 civilization is capable of. I had Michio Kaku on my podcast recently. Yeah. Fantastic. Love that guy. He's so good at taking extremely complex concepts and boiling them down for digestion and saying them in a way that other people can appreciate.
And not being hesitant about saying wild, crazy shit that's out there, but grounded in what's actually possible.
This is one of the things that they say, people that have been abducted. I had Travis Walton, this guy.
I've seen. I've watched it.
His bobblehead.
Yeah, I've watched it.
Very compelling in his descriptions of his encounter with these beings. But one of the things that he was saying was they were talking to him, but it wasn't with words. Like they were communicating with him, and he understood what they were saying, but it wasn't. They weren't saying things like, "Hey, Travis, why don't you relax? Because we're here from planet fucking whatever it is."
The information was flowing faster because it was like boom right away. What I think, you get it.
Yes, right? They were explaining things to him in some sort of a telepathic way.
Wow.
And it was mind-blowing to him. And I think that that's probably the future of communication. Just like you can transmit information from phone to phone, right? You can call people. They're nowhere near you, but you can talk to them. You can send a video to someone. It's going through the air. It's just data, right? It's just information.
Do you think Travis and Bob Lazar and all these guys that have extraordinary claim believe what they are telling you? I don't know if what they believe is true, but what do you think they believe what they are telling you in a way that they're not lying, they're telling the truth of what they're believing?
I can't tell for certain, but I believe Bob Lazar. I believe what he's saying is true. I believe he's telling me. Now, Bob, he had one moment where he was passing by a window and he said he saw something that was small and these people were standing over it, and he didn't know if it was an alien or whether it was some sort of a form that they were trying, like a doll or something that's supposed to represent the size of an alien or some sort of a model of an alien. But he remembers he looked briefly through a window and he saw something small. He didn't see it move around, didn't see it talk, so he doesn't know what he saw. Yeah. Because in his world, as he explained it, when he was working at Area 51 Site 4, that's where he worked, he said that it was very compartmentalized. And his thing was one of the problems with them trying to figure out, now this is assuming he's telling the truth.
Yeah, of course.
One of the problems they were trying to figure out was how to back engineer these devices, these ships. But the problem was they weren't allowed to communicate with other people outside of this very limited group of people that had access to these vehicles. And the people that were involved in the metallurgy were not allowed to communicate with the people that were involved in whatever the propulsion system was. They didn't understand what they were trying to decipher these things. But he said, and if you listen to the podcast that I did with him, that it didn't work because the scientific method requires multiple people to communicate and share ideas and explain, and they didn't do that.
You can't improve like that.
Right.
You need to share idea.
Right.
You can't do something and compartmentalize everything.
But my communication with him, I don't know if he was telling me the truth, but he didn't seem deceptive. And he's a brilliant guy.
It's clear he's clearly like borderline genius. You hear him speak, he's very educated.
And some of the things that he talked about came to fruition. Like one of the things was there was a concept of this thing called element 115, right? Yeah. Now that was not really proven until the 2000s or somewhere in the 2000s. They used a particle collider and created this thing where it was a very unstable, very short-lived particle. But he was saying that wherever these beings are from, they have figured out a way to utilize a stable version of this element 115, and that's how they propel themselves. The things that he was describing were also exactly the same things that were experienced by Commander David Fravor, who was a guy who is a jet pilot.
I saw, yeah.
Yeah, and so he experienced this thing move in that same direction, that same way, where there was no visible propulsion system, but they tracked this thing going from 80,000 feet above sea level to 1 in 1 second. So that's the amount of time that it takes radar to track this. So it might have been less than a second. This thing traveled from 80,000 feet to 1,000.
No time.
To 1 feet.
It's like that thing with the hand. He says he measured the distance between the bone and when you get in, you put your hand in it and measure the distance between your bone and the...
the scanner.
Yeah.
Yes, the scanner.
There is a lot of things like this. Like Zachariah Sitchin was, there's a lot of stuff that you can think of that how could they know that at the time? But it's...
Well, the Zachariah Sitchin stuff is interesting, right?
Yes.
That's all the Sumerian text. The Sumerian text is some fascinating stuff because it's all from 6,000 years ago. And by the way, Zachariah Sitchin, he's very controversial. There's even a website called SitchinIsWrong.com, and it's basically scholars of ancient Sumerian who say that his translations are completely off. But even if his translations are off, there's still a lot of really confusing stuff about ancient Sumer. And one of the things is their depictions of the solar system. They had a depiction of the solar system 6,000 years ago that shows the sun in the center, and it shows all of the known planets in the outside, and they're relatively accurate in terms of the size.
Yeah, and how about the formation of the Earth? Tiamat, Marduk. I don't remember which one is what, but that's
the formation of the Earth.
That's the model that we use today.
Well, the scientists...
The asteroid belt, that's the model that we use today. How did he know that at that time?
I don't know how they knew that. When you're saying it's Earth 1 and Earth 2, and what that means is that there was an original version of Earth, and then Earth was hit by another planet at some point in the distant past, and that's what created the moon, and that's also what created the asteroid belt. But the question is, why would we assume that it's a biological entity? It doesn't have any windows. It's this round thing that looks like a Tic Tac. If there is some sort of advanced propulsion system, some revolutionary way of moving through space and time that the U.S. government has developed, in some black ops program, that seems very likely impossible. That seems more likely than aliens visiting us. But there's more than one incident, and there's a lot of these things. And the possibility of alien life in the universe, although we've never experienced it, seems rational. It seems very rational. And if you were going to study an emerging civilization that is both primitive and warlike and yet insanely technologically advanced, to the point where they have nuclear weapons, they can transmit video through the sky, they have propaganda, they have tracking of their citizens, that's us. That's us right now. And while we are these territorial primal beings with fucking nuclear weapons, this would be a good time to start exposing yourself.
Yes.
And to stop this nonsense.
Insanity.
Yeah. And look, the reason why we named the rooms at our club Fat Man and Little Boy is because in UFO lore, that's when they started showing up. After the detonation of the atomic bombs in Japan, that's when the UFO sightings ramped up.
And they ramped up mostly in the U.S., right?
Yes.
So that's interesting because the U.S. was the nuclear power. So.
And we were the one who was doing a lot of fucking testing.
Yeah.
You know, and also we have all these military bases. Who the fuck has more military bases than us?
No one.
Who has more nuclear weapons pointed at other people than us? We have them all over the place. And there's all these multiple sightings and eyewitness accounts of like very credible people who say these things have hovered over military bases.
It'd be pretty cool if these aliens were benevolent overlords and they were like, hey, my children.
Yeah.
You know?
Or maybe even so advanced intellectually that the concept of an overlord is preposterous, and they're just biological management. There's just the gardeners tending to make sure the weeds don't get out of hand and just like let this process continue to play itself out. Because this process of technological innovation it's the everything that humans do. And I don't know if those people are telling the truth. Because if the people that are telling the truth that there's biological entities, and this is what Jackie Gleason said that Nixon told him, and Nixon took him on they were drinking. You know that famous story?
No.
Who knows if it's true? It's a legend. But the legend is that Jackie Gleason and Nixon were drinking, and that Nixon said, you want to see some fucking aliens? And they get on Air Force One, and they fly to some Air Force base, and they go to a place where they have a crashed UFO and they have biological beings that are in freezers. And Jackie Gleason sees this. And Jackie Gleason, after that, has a house built in upstate New York that looks like a UFO. He became obsessed with UFOs after that. There was a house, it was actually for sale at one point in time. Yeah, so he has this house that he had shaped like a UFO. And this is like, who knows if this is a true story?
Yeah.
Right? Because it's like, it was kind of sort of disputed. His ex-wife told the story or something like that. I forget.
I think that kind of thing is actually impossible to keep secret.
No, I don't think so.
Really?
No, I don't
think so. You think
generational,
generations of government bureaucraats can keep something a secret?
Sure,
I don't
they
think
tell the people at the very highest level know about it. It's very few people. It's all very compartmentalized.
They're always...
They monitor everyone's phone calls, everyone's emails, everything everyone does.
Impossible.
At a top secret clearance level.
No way. Impossible.
I don't think you're right.
Totally impossible.
You're definitely not right.
I think it's impossible.
Listen, man, they can keep secrets.
When?
People
Which
at high levels of military can keep secrets.
Yeah, but they're always rotating out. They're retiring. They're dying.
Yeah, and they probably wind up fucking Hillary Clinton and a lot of those dudes.
Hey, listen, dude. This is not Conspiracy Social Club. This is the Joe Rogan experience.
I am not willing to relinquish the idea that they could keep that secret.
Well, that's because it's fun to believe in.
Yeah, but it's not just fun to believe in. It is possible. It's a physically possible thing to do, especially if you have the right people and they're indoctrinated in the right way with top secret clearance. And by the way, it's not like these people don't tell their friends. And it's not like there's a bunch of stories floating around, because there are. There's a shitload of stories
That's what I'm
floating
saying.
around.
But why would you, like, I would never keep that a secret. I'd be like, hey, you got fucking aliens.
Here's the thing. When you have senators and congressmen who find out about this, and they find out that military contractors are the ones who have access to this stuff, because the back engineering program has to involve someone who has the capability of recreating this. So who would that be? That would be the people that make jets. If you got someone who's making you a fucking a stealth bomber, and you have a crashed UFO, those are the people that you want discussing, like, what kind of things you've recovered from a fucking alien crash, and can this be replicated?
No. Here's the problem with your whole
don't
theory.
you know me, motherfucker, because you don't know. You might be wrong.
This is your wrong. No.
No. Don't say you're wrong because you don't know that I'm wrong.
This is the problem with your theory. Ready?
Okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry, and I love that you want to believe in this, and so do I, but here's the problem.
Okay.
There's no law. There's no written law that says I'm not allowed to talk about aliens. And I mean at the top levels of clearance, like the most secret level. There is no world where if I'm a government official and I take a bunch of pictures and I come before Congress and I go, here's my evidence, I'm blowing the whistle, there are real aliens.
You don't think they would go after you for
I'd never go to jail.
Violating your top secret clearance?
No, because it's not violating my top secret clearance.
But it would be.
Nope. Because
I don't think you're right.
I'd never go to jail for that. Because I'd be like, you're going to put me in jail for exposing what everybody wants to know? The whole world would be like, holy shit, you guys kept this a secret?
But that's assuming that you have access to that material to extract
there are enough people who
from
would.
wherever maybe not. Maybe those are the kind of people that wouldn't do that, Brian.
Listen,
you fucking communist. I don't like the way you think.
I'm shredding your UFO theories.
No, you're not.
Listen,
you think you are, but you're just using these establishment.
You're allowed to talk
points.
about UFOs and you never get in trouble.
You sound like your dad.
Come on, man. First,
you're a
Andy
CIA
Schultz will beat me up. And
You're a CIA
I'll call my dad
stooge,
right now.
And you're in here spreading propaganda to the faithful listeners.
Listen to me. Listen to me. There are no aliens, and if there are, we'd know about it because it's
if
not
there is,
against
you're going
the
to come
law.
back on dressed like a clown. Agreed?
Agreed.
That's my bets I'm making with everybody now.
I'll dress up like
you
a
gotta
clown.
dress like a clown.
I'll do it.
And in another case, I saw it was a magpie, one of these birds known for how smart it is. There was a full, half-liter, plastic thing of water. It was just water, okay? A water bottle. And it was full. So the magpie goes over and sips out the water. Now, the beak is only, an inch and a half long or an inch at most. So it goes in until it can't reach the water anymore. So what does it do? It goes off to the side, gets a rock, just the right size, drops it into the water bottle.
It raises the level of the water.
Thereby displacing water. Here it is.
That is heavy.
You've got the video. There it is. And so it comes and it goes back and gets another stone, drops it in, and every time it drops it in, the water level rises and it can drink more water. And it keeps doing this.
That's pretty amazing.
Okay? And so every time we study animals, they're smarter than we ever thought they were. So maybe for our own ego, we kept building ourselves up, saying how separate and distinct we are as humans in the animal kingdom, when maybe we're not as separate and distinct as we think we are. So now what's my broader point there about that I was making? I just distracted
Something
myself.
about UFOs?
Yeah, I know. I was trying to get back to UFOs on that.
The fact that we have high-resolution cameras in our pocket and we take videos of things that are very unusual.
Exactly. So here's video of a magpie doing Bernoulli experiments on a water bottle. Who would have known that even happened, right?
Right.
Okay. You can't bring the bird into a lab and maybe you could, but I don't know that anyone did. All right. Here's my point. In the 1960s and 70s, there were many, many reports of alien abductions. People said, the aliens came to me and they brought me in and then they released me. Do you have any footage? No, they took my camera. Or no, they zapped my film and now there's no image on the film. But there were countless stories. Well, now you can stream live from your camera anything that's going on in front of you. So if the aliens come and they want to abduct you, stream it. That would be instantly viral. Oh my gosh. The stuff that goes viral is much less than that. A kitten that jumps to the table and falls, that goes viral? You don't think a video footage of an alien is not going to go viral instantly? But there's none. So I'm just saying, I'm thinking if we were being visited, somebody would have some good footage. If we were being visited, I'm thinking maybe Google satellite images would catch spaceships that are not airplanes moving on our surface. If we were being visited, I'm thinking we'd have something better than fuzzy monochromatic video of objects that apparently reveal themselves only to Navy pilots, right? So
one of the reasons is most of these sightings actually occur far offshore in the ocean. And the speculation is this is one of the ways, obviously I'm going to put my tinfoil hat on nice and tight.
Do your thing.
This is one of the ways that they monitor us. The best way to do it is to do it where they hold their base where no one is around, which is the ocean.
No, that's not true.
They go in the ocean, they pop up, and they fly out.
It's not true.
What do you mean it's not true?
It's not true. Yeah, nobody lives on the ocean. Yes, that's correct.
In the ocean.
But have you it lives down undersea.
This is what the speculation
is. It lives down undersea.
That's why these transmedium devices have been these transmedium crafts have been observed.
If you are sure we are being visited by aliens and you don't actually have really good evidence, then you have to say that. Sure.
Well, you know that.
You have to say that. You have to say this is really happening and they're observing us and they're concealing themselves in this particular way. You have to say that. And so that's your way to maintain your alien belief system by saying that. And I don't have a problem with it. Go get them. Mm-hmm. Go get them. But all of what has been put forth as evidence for aliens, to me, is insufficient evidence to excite my interest, my research interest in devoting time to finding it out. But it definitely has excited other people. I have not stopped them. I am not saying defund the military program on UAPs, which of course is just updated UFO. Right?
I know they like to say that now because there's like a stigma to UFO.
Yeah, I know. That's just that's a really transparent,
sneaky way of
doing
it.
No, it's not even sneaky. It's actually, I think it's embarrassing. It's like maybe if we call them UAPs,
people take them seriously.
People will take them seriously. No, it's just.
I'm of the belief that they're probably akin to what we did on Mars. I don't think there's aliens in them. I have a feeling that these things are probes. And I feel like if you just think about biological entities flying through the universe, like, why do that?
Right.
When you have sophisticated technology that's good enough right now from our, like, relatively primitive in consideration of what we think is possible a million years from now, right? But we can send that Mars rover around. We have a helicopter on Mars. I mean, there's multiple satellites flying through the universe right now taking images. We can do all that.
Yeah, but
why
our
would
probes are not targeting the Martian military fighter pilots.
Because there's no Martian military. But if there were, we certainly
just
would.
sitting out in the open.
Right, but if we had something like, are you familiar with one of the most famous cases was a case with Commander David Fravor of the Navy, who encountered with one or two other jets off of the Nimitz. They encountered this thing that was shaped like a Tic Tac.
Yeah.
You know the story.
Everybody knows this, yeah.
This story. It went from, they tracked it going from 80,000 feet above sea level to 50 in less than a second. They have no idea how it moved. There's no visible propulsion system. It was blocking their radar. It was actively blocking tracking.
This is what their sensors told them.
Exactly.
Just be clear about that.
And then
you're stating information as though it is facts.
I'm stating information as Commander Fravor
I don't care.
relayed
That
it.
doesn't matter. He's human, and we're all human here. But as a scientist, when you're presenting information, you don't say, this thing was at 80,000 feet and it dropped to zero to sea level in 1 second or whatever it was the measure. That's the wrong way to report it. What you say is, we have sensors that told us this is what happened.
I understand what you're saying.
Okay?
Yes.
That's a very important distinction.
Yes.
And so now, all right, your first question then, tell me about the sensors.
Yeah.
Okay. Are they double checked? Are they, and so, but if you're just going to say, there's this craft at 80,000, then everyone is thinking about a craft and no one is thinking about the sensor.
They actually saw it with their eyes too. This is something that they actually got.
You can't see something at 80,000 feet.
No, the actual visual on the craft.
Okay.
They didn't see it at 80,000 feet, but this craft, it's not just something that was tracked with equipment.
Got it. But they didn't see it at 80,000 feet.
Right.
That's my point. So
I want to hear more conspiracies, Eddie. Let's go.
I'm saying.
I like Eddie.
You know what? Fuck the
half in
submarine.
bag, son.
Fuck the submarine.
You're not into the Hunter Biden stuff, though? What's
No,
up
the
with
Hunter
that?
Biden stuff is
What about the
interesting.
UFOs?
UFOs, it's Project Blue
We
Beam.
used to be all in on UFOs.
Dude, are you
Remember back in
kidding?
the
I was
day?
a UFO. Dude, I
Bro,
was the UFO.
Is there ice in there or no?
Yeah.
No. Okay. I don't have any ice.
Yeah, those ball ices are awesome.
Get some more ice? We'll get some more ice? We'll get some more.
I got more whiskey here.
Do you remember when you and I first got into Zechariah Sitchin?
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
The Anunnaki.
You know how I got into it? You know, I remember how we got into it because remember Gina, the girl I used to make music with?
Yes.
She was like, she was, at some party and we were working on some music. She goes, last night this guy told me about, there's this guy who wrote about some transcripts or something like that. And he said he was telling me that we're created by aliens to mine gold. And I remember like, what? She goes, yeah, he was telling me about this. I go, what's his name? His name was like Jody. Because my friend Jody was telling me about this guy. And I'm like, can you call him? Call him up. And because it made sense to me, like, wait a minute, we were created as slaves to mine gold for this other planet? I was all balls deep in the UFOs. So I called this motherfucker. I go, do you remember what you were telling Gina? And he goes, yeah, there's this guy named Zechariah Sitchin. Look him up. He wrote a book called The 12th Planet. And I'm like, okay. So boom, got into it. I'm like, oh shit, I believe that shit. They got me hook, line, and sinker, man. But yeah. And then
So Eddie, do you think that do you believe that whistleblower, like that he's actually seeing the UFO?
I believe a lot of the people that see UFOs really believe they see it, and they just get set up. I think they're just.
But they're not seeing UFOs. They're seeing maybe a drone. They
exactly.
don't know the technology.
Holograms, drones, some high level shit. They're pushing it so hard. It's so obvious.
That's what's
so
weird,
fucking obvious.
Is that they're pushing it.
It's so obvious.
When it goes mainstream, I'm like, what's going on here? What
No,
are they trying
dude,
to
come
distract
on,
us
dog.
from?
And then at the same time, the Biden crime family shit's coming out, dog. All that shit where they said Rudy Giuliani was fucking crazy.
Yeah.
He's a crackpot.
Yep.
Dude, 2-3 years ago, they made him look like a fucking crackpot. And all he was doing, he goes, I got the laptop right here. We got it all right here. And the scariest part was they got 51 intelligence officers to sign off on it.
That's
That is
crazy. How scary
dude,
is that?
scary.
Scary.
Scary. You had
That's
51 guys bullshit?
Yeah.
Oh my God!
When
scary, scary.
They knew that it was legit in 2019.
Dude, scary. That's scary
That's
shit.
crazy.
Have you looked up the
And
laptop
what's
shit?
scary is no one is facing any repercussions.
Zero. He got a slap on
What
the
about all
wrist.
those guys?
Not just him. I'm talking about the people who told everyone that it was Russian disinformation.
They suffer no consequences.
And you know what? They stick with it though, because they're saying that the justice system is corrupt by saying that it's not.
Yeah.
They go, oh, they're lying. So it's just a lot of confusion.
Until I see a UFO, I'm going to be skeptical.
Yeah, super skeptical.
But it's interesting to watch the gradual shift that's happening in people who are like big time debunkers.
Mhm.
There is not like, okay, I think they're real, and I don't blame them for saying I don't think they're real, because it's like really they're still going off of like just people saying it's real. But the fact that the people saying it, like Marco Rubio coming out now, did you see that shit?
Right, but isn't it interesting? This is my observation. What they're saying is they talk to people who say this.
Right.
That's everybody. It's including Grush. Grush is saying that he has access to information and he was aware of information. He was aware of things that the public wasn't aware of. And so he wants to be a whistleblower because the public deserves to know about these things.
Yeah.
But he has no access to it.
Well, Rubio said he talked to people in the government who said they had firsthand.
Right, but he talked to people who said they saw the thing.
Under oath, though, right?
Right, but where are those people? Like, until those people are
Right.
standing in front of the camera going, I was on the spaceship.
Yeah.
I met the entities. They talked to me through telepathy.
Yeah, I think we might be close. They've got that hearing coming up, and I know that a lot of the or I like to believe that a lot of the sort of careful wording of things right now is to protect people who worry that they'll get killed. They have a sense of like, shit, man, they're going to kill me if I tell you this, but because he did it, I'm going to come out and say it. And, so I think they feel like, shit, we've got to be very, very careful to protect these people. I don't see any benefit for anybody in the government to go on statement saying that they've talked to people within the U.S. military who have seen UFOs. What's the benefit there? Like, if it's not true, you're going to look like the biggest dipshit on earth. You're going to be ridiculed. It's going to ruin your career potentially as a politician. So I don't see much of a benefit in them coming out and saying that stuff. That's the part where it's like, I can't trace how Marco Rubio, what's he going to, the next time he runs, he's going to be like, I'm the guy who got tricked into thinking there was UFOs.
Right. Yeah, it has to hit sort of a wall of public demand, where the public demand is like, hey, what is enough people are talking about it. There's enough, whether it's Commander David Fravor or the New York Times article, Jeremy Corbell, all these different videos that get released, where there's enough credible people talking about it that they have to kind of address it. And if someone like a senator, Marco Rubio, has a conversation with someone when they're saying, yeah, we have crashed UFOs and we have alien bodies and we're hiding it from the people.
Yeah, dude. And then where it
And
gets...
this has been going on for 80 years.
Here's the deal. If you are a politician and you realize we've all been briefed on this shit and it is coming out, and you other people don't have the guts to come out and say it, you realize to be the first politician who came out and told the truth. Now there is benefit there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of benefit in like the courage to come out and like support whistleblowers. Because, dude, I read an analysis of it that's so creepy because it points out that U.S. taxpayer money is being allocated to, if it's true, I'm saying, our taxpayer money is getting allocated to some organizations that are outside the control of the U.S. government. This is, and has been doing it for 50, 60 years. This is unconstitutional. Like, you can't do that. Like, what does that mean? That means that there is a second power structure within the government, truly like a secret something, and that is like we're paying for it, and if you're benefiting from the technology, if you're selling the technology to private contractors and making money off of it, that's supposed to be for us, free energy, whatever it may be. So that is where it's sinister is.
Well, also imagine if you're the government. Imagine if you're, let's say, the Air Force, and you have control over some vehicle from another planet where you have. If the airport wants jets, they don't make them. they hire someone to make.
Right.
They have a military contractor that has all the engineers and all the expertise, and they hire, all these people that actually make jets.
Right.
Right? They need a jet, they buy a jet.
Right.
So if they acquire a spaceship, they're not going to hold on to it themselves. They don't have the people to fuck with this thing. They're going to bring it to the people that make those things. They go, hey, you guys make the stealth bomber. Tell me what the fuck this is.
Right. Right.
Tell me what the fuck this is.
Yeah. Yeah, man. And
can we make one? And if we can't make one, can we figure out how it runs?
Yeah, at least tell us how it runs. Do you have any idea? I heard that Jeremy was on my podcast, was talking about how it's apparently, I'm sorry, Jeremy, if I'm misquoting you. This is from me. Mm-hmm. Obviously, so forgive me if there's a error in the way I'm saying it, but it's compartmentalized.
Yeah.
So some of the reverse engineering people theoretically don't even know that they're looking at wreckage.
Yes. That's what Bob Lazar said on my podcast. He said part of the problem is science can't exist in a vacuum. Science is collaborative. And the metallurgy guys weren't talking to the propulsion guys. Nobody talked to anybody. You had an area where you're allowed to go and look at the vehicle, and you were with your other teammate, and everybody reported on everything that was said and done. And
yeah, man.
And it was too limited for them to ever really figure out, in his belief at that time. So we're talking about 1989. If what he's saying is true. What he was saying was that they were bringing him to this area, and he couldn't tell his wife, he couldn't tell anybody where he was going, and they were flying him to Area S4 where they had this UFO. They didn't have just one, they had multiple ones. And this sort of aligns with what Grush was saying, because I think what Grush was saying is there's 12 of them. They have 12, which is 12. For real? Or are you guys sending money to Ukraine you don't want me to know about, so you're showing me this? That sounds so crazy.
Yeah, I don't buy the distraction theory, because it's man, the U.S. government's been doing weird shit with money.
Oh, but here's a distraction. What if this is just an advanced drone program, and what the U.S. government is doing with this advanced drone program to obscure it, they just start releasing UFO stuff and having whistleblowers come out that are actually intelligence agents, and they come out and start talking about bullshit. Jackie Gleason supposedly had an encounter with Nixon. That Nixon and Gleason were buddies, and they were drinking.
Really?
And
I did not know
it's
this.
a famous story that's disputed, but apparently.
Let's go with it, though.
Let's go with it. Gleason apparently had said that Jackie Gleason and him were drinking, and Nixon was like, "You want to see a fucking UFO?"
No way.
Yeah, and he flew him to see wreckage, and they had frozen biological entities, and they got a chance to see these things that they had frozen.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
So that must have been early 70s at some point.
Something like that. And Jackie Gleason wound up having a house built in the shape of a UFO afterwards.
No
Yeah,
way.
that was for sale as recently as, I think, a decade ago. See if you can find that house.
In L.A. or something?
No, it's in upstate New York. But the house looks like a fucking UFO.
No
he had a UFO house built. Yeah, Jackie Gleason apparently was obsessed with UFOs after the fact.
No.
So this
What?
Yeah. Jackie
that looks
Gleason's
like a
UFO
cabin.
inspired upstate New York spaceship house.
No way.
Yeah.
Doesn't that look like, and that picture makes it look bigger. Okay, that's serious.
Yeah,
oh,
it's
wow.
a fucking.
That's beautiful.
Oh, that's two different buildings?
Oh.
Oh, he has more
The first
than
one's
one
like
of
the
them?
guest house.
Oh, I see.
Small building.
Yeah, look at that.
That's the
fucking
guest house,
thing.
the other one.
Wild.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so Jackie Gleason became a UFO freak.
Man, I'm going to do that after this. That's a pretty cool looking house.
Yeah, it's pretty dope.
Yeah.
Oh my God,
wow,
I wish it
look
was.
at that.
I wonder if it's still for sale.
That's
Entrance to
amazing.
the mothership. Woo!
I'm going to talk to my wife about this when I get
Yeah.
home. This is serious right here. Well, now you have this SIG Spear. So there's a lot of UFO stuff on this SIG Spear. So maybe this should be reserved for taking out the aliens when they come.
I don't want to take them out.
Well, if they attack you.
Listen, I don't think they're going to attack.
If they attack.
If they do attack, I think they could render you useless almost instantaneously.
But them too. They're kind of like, why wouldn't they just sit back and watch?
I think they're
going to pass right by.
If I had a guess, I mean, just the wildest of speculations, I would guess that every civilization reaches a point of technological proficiency when they're also dealing with these territorial warring tribes where they have the ability to literally destroy the earth. And that if this is a natural course of progression for intelligent beings, they get to this point, there's a transition where it gets very dangerous. And if I was from another planet and I was monitoring this, I would be there to make sure that they don't launch. That they don't, and that's the theme of the Mothership Comedy Club, is that the rooms are called Fat Man and Little Boy. And the reason why the rooms are called Fat Man and Little Boy is because that is a specific moment in UFO folklore when the aliens start arriving. After the detonation of those bombs, that's when you start seeing this massive uptick in sightings.
Really?
Yes. And interactions with fighter pilots and these different military bases that have nuclear programs where the bases get shut down and all the power goes off. Yeah, there's like...
That's wild.
Yeah, it's heavy stuff, because if you think that they are watching, that would make the most sense. That they see that we have nuclear power, we have the ability to blow ourselves up, and we detonate two bombs, and then they're like, okay, let's go monitor these assholes.
Let's go make sure that they don't do anything that's going to affect the rest of the universe.
One country right now has them. Let's fucking specifically concentrate on them. And then they have sightings in the Soviet Union when the Soviet Union has the capabilities. And yeah, there's a ton of documented sightings and these encounters that happen. And then
so beforehand, there's not really anything.
Very little. Very little. Well, I'm sure they've probably been visiting us. If they do visit us, I would imagine they've been visiting us forever. Like, look, they've got engines. Look, they've got guns. Look, they've got this. You know, it'd be fascinating to watch. Like, look at these territorial apes with nuclear weapons. Like, it's the time to watch.
Right now, they're probably just sitting back, popping that popcorn and being like, oh, man,
well,
it's getting interesting now.
We're getting closer and closer to our fucking inevitable demise. Like, that's when the sightings are ramped up to the point where the Pentagon has to start talking about it.
And they are.
Yes.
In front of Congress.
Yes.
I mean, that's wild.
Yeah.
But no one pays attention.
No one pays attention.
It's like, let's go back to, TikTok and Instagram.
Well, I mean, they kind of pay attention, but it's not, there's nothing that you could fucking put your fork into.
Right.
You know, it's like, what is it? You know, like, why are they telling us about this? That's also, there's a lot of cynicism when it comes to, like, why is the government telling us about UFOs?
Like a distraction, you mean?
But what is it? Like, what are they telling us because they really have this information and they want to slowly leak it out because this is an inevitable contact moment and they want to prepare civilization? Or is it just horseshit? Is it just they're distracting us and this is how they, institute this drone program where they have this, anti-gravity device and they can move at insane rates of speed? I don't know. I mean, it's just guesswork.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. You get to hear directly from these guys who've actually seen it, experienced it.
Yeah.
Hang out and talk with them for a little bit. Oh,
I've talked to quite a few now. Quite a few that have seen these things and had these experiences. But the Bob Lazar one is uniquely compelling.
All right.
Uniquely compelling because Bob is without a doubt a brilliant guy.
All right.
And he was a legitimate propulsions expert who it's been proven he worked at Los Alamos Labs, and they tried to hide that. They tried to lie about that and say that he wasn't, but he's on the employee roster. He has an intimate knowledge of the facilities. They took him, George Knapp took him on a tour of Los Alamos. He knew where everything was. He knew the people there. They knew him.
Wow.
Yeah, it's wild shit, man, because if he's telling the truth, he says it's not one that they've recovered, but multiple, and that one of them they think is really old, and they got it from an archaeological dig. They think that they recovered this thing in the ground.
That's movie stuff. I mean, you see that in movies, and we all watch it in movies and think it's science fiction, but there's a lot of science fiction that has come to fruition, from submarines to going to the moon to also space travel in general, flight, just flying.
Sure, all of it. Every
and we're just like,
Buck Rogers.
No big deal.
Just to give you an example, in my book, I talk about Winston Churchill. Winston Churchill in 1939 wrote an essay about the fact that there could be life on other planets, around other stars, and we should search for it. Now, he didn't have a chance to publish it because he became prime minister and then had to fight the Second World War against the Nazi regime. So much money was wasted in that war. If that money was allocated to the search for extraterrestrial life, the way that Churchill envisioned it before the war, we might have known the answer by now. And what I'm saying is this is just an example for how non-intelligent we are. We are not working together towards a better future. We're fighting each other. And that's the answer to your question, that we might not live very long.
But you're saying this as you work at Harvard and as you're writing books on extraterrestrial objects.
Right.
I don't necessarily agree with you. I think there are massive problems with people, but I think we are far better than the human beings that lived 2,000 years ago in that regard. And I think that we will probably be looking back on this day and age and mocking how stupid we are when we are more advanced 2,000 years
I
from
really
today.
hope so, and that's what I'm
I
trying
think
to...
we're moving in that direction.
Well, that's what I'm trying to promote, but I'm not necessarily
I think
as
our
optimistic
cake-
as you are.
I think our cake is still in the oven.
Let's
That's
hope
what I
so.
think. That's what
I really want that future. But, I'm doing my best, but you can see from the pushback,
yes,
to which I don't have access because I'm not, I don't have an account on the social media.
Congratulations again for that. I think that's, I think we're moving, I think there's conflict, but I think for whatever reason, the way human beings operate, we oftentimes need conflict in order to make improvements.
Right.
We need a yin and a yang. We need a give and a pull. If we don't have that, we get complacent.
Why
we get
can't we understand the best path forward without... it's just like using a GPS system and it says recalculating.
Yes.
Every time we have a crisis, recalculating. So we recalculate our next move based on all the mistakes we've made. Why can't we be smart in the first place?
I think we have biological limitations that are based on our ancestry. And our ancestry is filled with tribalism and chaos, and we're primates. I mean, that's part of the problem. And I think that our issue with racism is the same issue that we have when we have religious discrimination or cultural discrimination. It's tribalism.
I agree.
And we are, it's wired into our DNA.
Now, my problem is, why couldn't science, given that, there are billions of Earth-Sun systems within just the Milky Way galaxy, and then 1 trillion galaxies like the Milky Way in the observable volume of the universe. Why can't the mainstream of astronomy simply say, conservatively, just assuming the most conservative, not speculative assumption, conservatively, we are at the middle of the road, kind of life. It's very likely that we're not unique and special. And let's just look for evidence, search for it. Why should there be a taboo on discussing this subject? That makes no sense. For example, astronomers are now contemplating new telescopes of the future that will cost billions of dollars to taxpayers, okay? That would search for oxygen in the atmospheres of other planets around other stars, because oxygen could be indicative of life, microbial life. I say, it will never be conclusive, such a search, even if it costs billions of dollars, because the Earth, for 2 billion years, the first 2 billion years of the Earth's history, didn't have much oxygen in its atmosphere. There were microbes, but the oxygen level was quite low. And then it suddenly rose after 2 billion years, half of its life. So not finding oxygen doesn't mean there is no life. And then if you find oxygen, it can be produced by many natural processes like breaking water molecules or other things. So it will never be conclusive. How can you make a conclusive statement if you find industrial pollution in the same atmosphere? You just search for CFCs. These are the molecules produced by refrigerating systems, by industries. If you find evidence for that, there is no way that nature can make these very complex molecules naturally. So I say to the mainstream of astronomy, use the same instruments and motivate them by this question of, can we detect industrial pollution? And I wrote a paper about it. And the thing is, the public is extremely interested in this question. And the public funds science. So how can the scientific community shy away from a question that it can address with existing technology, when the public is very interested in that? How can there be a taboo on this question? That's the thing that really puzzles me. Now, I wasn't working in this area until the last 5 years or so. I was working in studying black holes, studying the universe, and I came across a number of ideas that led me into this rabbit hole, into this subject. Now I'm about to publish this book at a popular level, but also a textbook 6 months later that describes all the science that we have related to the search for life outside Earth, far from Earth. And I'm just amazed that, it's not part of the mainstream. It's really surprising to me, and I think it's inappropriate because you look at physics, theoretical physics, there are lots of speculative ideas in it. Like people talk about extra dimensions, the multiverse, supersymmetry, superstring theory. All of these have no evidence to their credit. There is no experimental test, not even thought about, like in the next decade, the next 2 decades. But these ideas are part of the mainstream. So you see physicists giving each other awards and doing intellectual gymnastics, just demonstrating that they're smart. And to me, that's an unhealthy situation in physics. You can do it in mathematics where it's completely detached from any application to reality. But in physics, we are supposed to describe reality. And yet you have these intellectual... So it's as if the physics community, some parts of it, decided that the most important task is to demonstrate that you're smart. And that is really strange to me because, we're supposed to understand nature, not show that we are smart.
There was a WikiLeaks that was just released today about NASA knowing about aliens.
Really?
Yes!
Bollocks. Go on, go.
Pull it up, Jamie. NASA knows about aliens. They have information.
Dun, dun,
WikiLeaks
dun.
knows, and they're going to spill the beans.
I tell you, when it comes out
tear
tomorrow
this
that it really is true, and then there's like an alien ambassador on the White House lawn or something, you're going to be like, oh, okay, I was, you're going to feel like a prat, aren't you?
Oh, it's anonymous. I thought it was WikiLeaks. Anonymous, much more likely to be pranksters.
Yeah. If much more likely. That's very generous.
Anonymous, a global hacking collective, believes that alien life exists and thinks NASA is about to confirm it. The shadowy group.
Oh yeah,
I love that. It's a shadowy
group of autists
that
on the
you
internet,
can be in. You could join.
No, how do you know I'm not?
I'm in too.
Exactly.
In a 12.5-minute video published in an unofficial YouTube channel on Tuesday, the video centers around recent findings by the American Space Organization, including the discovery of 219 new planet candidates, 10 of which present similar conditions to Earth, by NASA's Kepler Space Telescope team in June, as well as comments made by a senior NASA official. But here's the real thing, right? You believe, and I believe as well, that it's entirely possible that some life exists somewhere in the infinite universe.
I can't believe it doesn't.
Of course, we're on the same page. Yeah. Why are we so skeptical about it visiting us?
Because it's very difficult to visit us.
Right, but if it's like way more advanced than us, shouldn't it be able to figure it out just like we could figure out how to get a probe to Jupiter? But then, why can't it figure out how to visit us?
But then we've got a government conspiracy and cover-up.
Do we? Or are they just people and they don't know any more than you or I? Like, we don't know shit. Why would if aliens came here, do you think they would like go, oh, that's an elected official. Clearly that guy's the mayor. Let me talk to him. No, they'd look at this fucking anthill and they'd be like, which one of these dipshits should we tell? I don't know. Let's just pick that guy up and stick some stuff up his ass and run some tests on him.
That's bollocks though. Because
sense, bro. And you're fighting
listen, dude. I've got an
really
argument.
offended. We've been friends online forever, and this is just.
I've got a counter argument to this. We can distinguish from one ant to another.
Yes.
We can see the workers. We can see the soldiers. We can see the queen. They can tell. They would surely be smart enough to say,
but
this is
the
the mayor, this is
soldiers and the
president.
queen are physically shaped different.
So.
They're different things. Like this big one makes all the babies.
Yeah, but the aliens...
It's pretty obvious that a queen bee, she has a giant stinger that doesn't detach, and she goes and kills all the baby bees. That bitch is trying to kill the women.
English? Why can't they speak English?
They probably can.
Yeah, so but if they say Mr. President, they'll be like, okay, what does that mean?
We have to think that if something is alien, that it could be so alien that all of our concepts of culture are so bizarre that there's no context for it to relate.
And how can they understand our language?
They just know what we're saying.
Right.
They know what we're saying based on the fact that it's fairly simple.
No. If they can understand our language, then they must have relatable or similar concepts in their own language.
Not necessarily.
To be able to translate
Not necessarily.
Then they can't understand our language.
That's not necessarily true. That's putting them into a limitation that we currently have. Like, we don't understand dolphin language, but we know they have a language.
Yeah, but we can appreciate that dolphins probably have a concept for eating. Right. And so, like, if the dolphins, I don't know what dolphin language.
Yeah, but we're talking about culture in terms of like who's the queen, who's the mayor.
Yeah, like the hierarchical. They'll have like an alpha dolphin, and people, the dolphins will have some like, cliques that mean the person in charge. I mean, they must have some concept of hierarchy, because they have a concept of hierarchy. You can see them operate under a concept of hierarchy.
But that we don't really understand dolphin language.
Well, no, but I mean, we can surely pick out, like, the concepts themselves. I mean, they must understand the concept of a leader, or they just can't understand the concept of a leader.
I don't think it is widely understood what dolphins are saying. I think
I don't think we can translate dolphin to human.
Well, we can't even recreate it.
I'm sure.
But I mean, we can't recreate their sounds. Like, we don't know what their sounds mean. Like, if we said a bunch of shit to a dolphin, like,
no, of course. But I'm not saying we can talk to dolphins or anything, but like with a dog, you can. Dogs have got certain kinds of and very, very primitive methods of communication. But like a dog whimpers, it's in pain,
right?
And so I have to have a concept of being in pain to understand the dog's going, I know that means the dog's hurt. I must understand that the concept of hurt.
Right.
And so if the aliens, if they can understand English, then they must understand the concept of what a president is, or they must have some
sort of.
They must have some way of analyzing it, surely.
Sure. If they can take in all the data.
I'm assuming they're superior to us, obviously.
Yeah. Well, if not superior, technologically far more advanced in that they've been alive longer. But when you consider the possibility of all sorts of different weather conditions, different life conditions, maybe different solar systems where they have zero concern about being hit by an asteroid.
And they're always bipedal.
Yeah.
In sci-fi.
Well, that's because
they're lazy.
They're supposed to represent us in the future.
That's because it's easier.
Is that what it is?
Well, surely.
It's what we can relate to. I think it's a relatable thing.
It could be that too.
But that was my point, is that I think that aliens could potentially be so alien that they can't even relate to the concept of our ability to communicate with noises.
Yeah.
Like, they might be communicating with smells. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They might be using some telekinesis or some shit. Psychics, man.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, yes.
So do you think, if you had to bet all of your YouTube money...
That's not very much. Thanks, Wall Street Journal.
Have aliens been here or no?
I would probably bet no.
No?
Yeah, I'm a bit of a skeptic. I would need... Dude. I mean, all of the ancient alien stuff is total horseshit.
50 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Like, look at that thing. Yeah. If you'd be like, they're coming. Oh, my God, they're coming. But if you can imagine that was 40 or 50 years ago, 40 or 50 years of advancement, like, who knows what they're doing now?
Yep, exactly.
And if I was going to cover it up, I would just start talking about aliens. It's the best way to do it. Don't you think?
It's a crowd pleaser.
Do you have an opinion on that, or is this something that you find ridiculous until there's, like, real data?
I like living in a world where there are unknowns. I like there being some mystery. So I like...
Like, how far do you go? You go Bigfoot?
I don't know. I just... I'm not even saying I need to have a point of view on them. It's more just... by the way, there is a UFO right behind you.
Yeah.
You probably know all about that.
I'm obsessed with UFOs.
Lifting somebody right up into the air.
Look, there's one on the desk. That's the model of the Bob Lazar craft that he worked on, supposedly, at Area 51.
There we go. It looks familiar. Look, I want there to be mystery, right? I want there to be unknowns. Like, living in a world where everything is settled, quote unquote settled. No. Let's have some mystery. I don't even know if I really want to know.
Really?
It's like I don't know.
Oh, I think if you know, that's just the tip of the iceberg of the mystery. I think knowing that aliens do exist is just the beginning.
Yeah.
Like, okay, did they engineer us?
Uh-huh.
When did they start visiting?
Mm-hmm.
Are the stories from the Bhagavad Gita, is that about UFOs?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
have they been here the whole time?
Yeah, have they been here the whole time? Mm-hmm. Did they come every now and then and make sure we don't blow ourselves up? Like, what's the purpose?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm in favor of
Come on, man.
Right,
you want to know?
Okay, all right, I'm in.
If anybody's going to know, you're going to know. So I'm going to call you.
So Elon says this. Elon says he hasn't seen anything.
Yeah, I'm super suspicious when he says that. Super
suspicious that they haven't told him, or that he's maybe playing a little hide the ball.
If I was him, I'd play hide the ball. Yeah. If I'm running SpaceX, I'm working with NASA, and I already got in trouble smoking weed on a Joe Rogan Experience. I would fucking play ball. Let's play ball. Aliens, I have no evidence.
No idea.
They sure are subtle.
Yep.
That's what he says. They sure are subtle. It depends on who you are. If you're one of those people that's seen those things, if you're like Commander David Fravor, or if you're Ryan Graves. You know the Ryan Graves story?
No.
fighter pilot, and they upgraded their equipment in 2014, and all of a sudden, because of the new capabilities of their equipment, they were able to see these objects at a far distance that were moving at insane rates of speed, that were hovering dead still at 120 knot winds, and no visible means of propulsion. They don't know what the fuck they're doing, and they were encountering them like every couple of weeks. And then there was some pilots were encountering them with eyewitness accounts. They say there's video footage of it, but of course nobody can get a hold of that. It's like the whole thing is very strange.
Okay, so here's something. So the a lot of people worried about AI are like, we need to shut it down before it like causes problems. Before it, like wake up the demon, cause an issue, get something on Earth that hates us and wants to kill us. Arguably the thing we should have shut down from the very beginning was radio.
Radio.
Right, because we've been like broadcasting radio waves for the last 100, 120 years, and the radio waves don't stop once they leave Earth's atmosphere. They keep going. And so we now have radio waves of human activity that have radiated out 120 light years.
Is that bad?
Well, depends. Are there hostile aliens within 120 light years? And so but maybe that was the original sin. And then of course television, of course, made that problem much worse.
Right. We would have to think of like a hostile, militaristic empire that took over a whole planet and then started exploring the solar system. Not one that we like to think of aliens as being evolved, hyper intelligent, beyond ego and war. They've bypassed all that, and now they're into science and exploration. And
well, here's the question though: is like, would aliens have a sense of humor, right? Would they like be able to differentiate between truth and fiction, right? And so, like, for example, suppose they're sitting in their advanced alien base on Gemini 9 or whatever, and they're receiving 30 years, 20 years after the fact episodes of Fear Factor, right? And they think that you're actually like torturing people, and they figure that in order to preserve the human rights of humanity, they need to invade as a consequence of your show and take over and protect us.
That doesn't make any sense.
Well, but if they don't have a sense of humor, if they don't know
even if they don't have a sense of humor, they can clearly see that these people are in a contest.
Why would they even have a concept of a contest? I mean, how silly is that? A serious species
it's competition.
Wouldn't do such things.
But a serious species started out as a dumb species.
No,
unless they're magic.
You're hoping that they understand these things.
Yes.
Because it would really suck to be the guy whose TV show caused the invasion.
If there's anything, it would be American Gladiators.
Oh, okay, all right.
That would be the start of it.
It'd be like this species is so warlike they can't stop.
No, what would be like the start? What would be the one thing that would be like, that's enough? It would have to be news. It would have to be war. I mean, that would be, forget about Fear Factor.
Yep.
We're broadcasting, the images of the Vietnam War.
Yeah, or maybe they saw movies about alien invasions and they thought we'd been invaded by other aliens.
Right.
Yeah,
like what if Mars attacks is the first things they get?
Exactly.
So you like having the mystery of the idea out there. Like, it's fun for you.
I don't want ever. We need adventure, right?
If someone came to you, someone from on high, and said, "Listen, we have to promise you to secrecy, but we want to show you some things because I think it's pertinent to some of the things you're working on."
I'm in.
Yeah. Me too.
I'm gonna drop my.
Me too. I'm not telling nobody. I'll come in here and be just like Elon.
Yep, exactly.
Oh, sure, all subtle.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's just too interesting to know.
Yep.
But I think eventually I'd tell.
Yep.
I think I'd feel terrible.
Yep.
I'd feel a responsibility.
Yep.
Yeah.
Someday.
Well, that's what some of these guys are saying. Like Grush, he's saying that once he found out about the program, he felt like he had a responsibility. Like if they really have a crashed UFO retrieval program, like why don't you tell people? Like you should not. The military companies shouldn't be the ones that have access to this only, and the whoever is determining that this is above top secret clearance and nobody can get a hold of it except for this very select few people. Like, says who? This is something that involves the whole human race.
Right.
Like, I know if they do had something, I would imagine that it's of interest to national security that you develop this kind of technology before the competitors do. That clearly makes sense.
So then what technologies came out of it in the last 50 years?
Well, if you want to go full tinfoil hat, there's a lot of speculation that fiber optics were developed after recovered crashed UFO. I mean, I'm sure it sounds silly because there's probably a real paper trail to the development of fiber optics. But if you, the real kooks believe that. There was actually a website, a computer company called American Computer Company. And it was a legitimate computer company. You would order a computer with whatever specifications you want, and they would build it for you. But they had a whole section of their website that was dedicated to crashed retrieval of UFOs and the development of various technologies. And they had like this tracing back to Bell Labs and why the military base was outside of Bell Labs when it was so far from New York City that it was really just about protecting the lab because they were working with these top secret materials that they had recovered from Roswell.
Don't you think it'd be more